in the 5 years that I have been state auditor, I've identified over $350 million in government waste and abuses. And because of my audits, 60 criminal counts have been brought against corrupt public officials in this state.
Wow. Wow, definitely making moves in that time period. And we really appreciate you for that as well too. And also thank you for educating our listeners on what exactly a state auditor does. Um, Now, prior to your position as state auditor, what other political offices have you held, if any?
Sure. I never expected to be running for political office. I mean, I don't come from a political family or a connected family. I
Mm,
grew up in St. Louis County. My mom is a nurse. My dad's an engineer for a general contractor. When I was growing up, I really liked math. Math was my favorite subject in school, and my dad would actually assign me extra math problems to do when my homework was finished. And so, yes, I was a little bit of a nerd, but I'm okay with that. And so I worked for a long time in the private sector as a CPA and a certified fraud examiner, auditing Fortune 500 companies, insurance companies, things of that nature. And I got into public service at the local level as treasurer in Boone County. It's right in the middle of the state where Columbia is. And I really just got involved in public office for the service aspect. I thought, I can use the skills that I have to help improve the community around me. And so that was really my foray into public service. My husband, John, and I still live in Columbia now, and we have three boys that are 8, 6, and 3. And, again, to me, this is about service and helping people in big ways and in small ones improve their lives and make their lives better.
And, and when you made the comment of service, that's one thing that I like our listeners to hear that, being in a political office is a form of service. And, people are entrusting our political officials to speak on our behalf and do things on our behalf as well, too. So the highlighting of that word is like a buzzword here, especially during this election season. Um, Now, you are pursuing the position of governor. What what drove you to make that transition, to make that choice to say, I want to pursue this higher office?
Yeah. Well, again, being in the Jefferson City as state auditor, I have looked at all levels of government, from local governments to large state agencies, everything in between. And I see so often that government is just not working for the people. It is just
Mm,
not. And I am running for governor to put Jefferson City back on the side of working families, back on the side of the people of the state. Right now, if you are well connected in Jefferson City, you get exactly what you want. But if you're an everyday person, like the family that I grew up in, you're struggling to pay for health care. You're
hmm
concerned about funding for education. You're concerned about your community being safe. And what Jefferson City is doing is just not working. Healthcare, I think, is the biggest example of this.
hmm
Healthcare is becoming more and more expensive. Hospitals and clinics are closing. We have not expanded Medicaid in this state. So working Missourians that have sometimes one job, two jobs, they just don't have health care provided through the job that they work. So they just don't have health insurance at all and are one accident, one medical emergency away from bankrupting themselves and their families. It is not acceptable. We are just not going to succeed as a state as we continue down the same path that we've always been down. And, COVID obviously is a huge part of this healthcare conversation.
hmm
Um, and I think that COVID has shown the cracks in our system that have existed for a long, long time, and it's just made those cracks wider. And we can't go back to where we were on the eve of this crisis because where we were just wasn't good enough for too
Mm.
many people. So I really do believe that we're at a moment for positive change and that Missourians want a new way of doing things in Jefferson City so they can have a better life.
Wow. Yeah, that you kind of was reading my mind because my next question was going to ask you what platform you were standing on, and you were throwing out some things that really got my attention, especially with the healthcare piece, because I know we struggled trying to find healthcare for our son because we could only go to only certain healthcare providers or healthcare insurance providers here in the state based on zip code, and like I think a year ago one of them didn't even have Children's Mercy Hospital. So I'm like, well, my son's, well, at the time he was 3. I said, I really want him to go to this hospital. Well, your insurance isn't covered there. I'm like, whoa, so a baby can't go to a children's hospital? So, yeah, I'm definitely glad that you've outlined that. Are there any other aspects of your platform that you wanted to share?
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, I just want to say I'm so sorry that happened. It doesn't make sense that
Yeah.
a 3-year-old wouldn't be able to go to the children's hospital, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the exact kind of issues that I'm talking about. And let's not forget that again before this crisis, Governor Person had kicked 100,000 kids off of their health insurance.
Mm.
And so when some of these parents went and showed up at scheduled doctor's appointments, they were turned away because Parson had canceled their insurance without these folks even knowing it. It's again the decisions that are made in Jefferson City impacts people's lives, and it's pretty clear that working people are not in the forefront of how these decisions are made, and I think that needs to change.
Yes.
Another thing that I wanted to mention to you is that I have put out an opportunity agenda for Black Missourians. Um, you know, with after the killing of George Floyd, it opened up painful wounds that Missourians are all too familiar with. And we see change in policy and in laws happening in other states, but we're not seeing it here in Missouri.
Mm.
And so, this agenda includes not just criminal justice reform, which is important, but it also includes dealing with economic opportunity and economic empowerment in our communities, education,
Mm-hmm.
healthcare, and voting rights.
Mm.
I believe that we need a comprehensive policy to address the issues that we're seeing in communities across our state. And this is why the Opportunity Agenda for Black Missourians is one of the first agendas that my campaign put out.
Mm. Yes, we were just talking about how the criminal reform situations here in the state just prior to your phone call. And one thing myself and Mr. Walker, the owner of KUAW, was discussing is that when they when problems are dealt with, they're more of a behavioral piece instead of cognitive. It's like you see the issue being taken care of, but it's not digging in and trying to figure, okay, so what can we do to prevent this from happening again? It's like it's more profitable to lock people up instead of trying to find the root of the problem. So
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I mean,
Mm.
so right now, Governor Parson has called a special session to deal with crime across our state, and we know that violent crime is increasing. It's been happening for years, and only now has Parson realized that this is an issue that needs to be dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of addressing the things, just as you're saying, that are getting to the heart of why our homicide rates are up, why gun violence is up. Instead of getting to the heart of it, we're doing many of the same old things that we've done over and over and over again in Jefferson
Mm-hmm.
City that are not working. And some of these things in the special session have bipartisan support. They will probably pass. But studies have shown that this type of approach isn't going to get at the heart of why folks are committing crimes, right? And so that's why I try to address this in the agenda that I put out, looking at economic opportunity and economic empowerment to lift these communities up.
Mm.
When I was in Kansas City and heard a story from a mom that she found out her 15-year-old was going to buy a gun from a 17-year-old.
Mm.
And this mom said, why? Why would you do that? Why would you buy this gun? And this 15-year-old boy looked at his mother and said, Well, what difference does that make? I'm not going to live to be 21 anyway.
Mm.
There's a total lack of hope that we need to address by uplifting these communities through a comprehensive agenda. We cannot accept the same old thing over and over again and expect something different.
Yes. Wow. That's that cognitive that cognitive piece we've been talking about. Yes, yes. So I like to do the same thing I did prior, because you kind of touched on it a little bit when you were speaking about the your Black Missourians agenda as well as the pandemic piece. I want to kind of shift reality a little bit and see how you would handle certain situations if you were governor as of right now, because we already seen how the previous administration is handling the following points I'm about to see, but I want to see how you will handle those. Like, for example, if you were governor of Missouri right now, how would you handle the the shutdowns in regards to the pandemic?
Yes. So, I have been critical of how the governor has responded to the pandemic
Mm-hmm.
and have been very vocal about how I would have done things differently. First, you have to listen to public health experts.
Yes.
Public health experts understand the dynamics of this disease and this virus and how it is spreading. And so we have to lean on public health experts to give policymakers good advice. I would have issued a statewide stay-at-home order sooner
Mm-hmm.
because we have to control the spread of the virus. Look, we are in an economic crisis too,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
I mean, people want to get back to work. People have lost their jobs. They've lost their health care through their jobs. People are concerned about schools opening. And until we slow the spread of the virus, we will never turn our economy back on. These two things are linked together, and it's foolish for our leaders to think that they're not. And so, again, we have listened to public health experts in order to get our economy up and running again. But the other thing here is that there are simple things that we can do to slow the spread of the virus, like wear a face mask, wear a face covering. And I am actively encouraging folks to wear a face mask. It's a way to protect the public health. We can save our economy and save jobs at the same time. In contrast, Governor Parson comes to the defense of those who do not want to wear a mask. He comes to the defense of those that don't want to do the simple thing to slow the spread of the virus. He's sending very mixed signals about government's role in the coronavirus pandemic. And again, look, schools are going to open here hopefully this fall in just a few weeks. But unless we contain the spread of the virus, encourage folks to wear masks, I'm afraid that school openings are going to be delayed. I know that we've seen some of that in Kansas City already.
Right. We have. I know. I currently work for a school district right now, and it's kind of we have a date set. It's slightly delayed. However, I'm thinking that there may be an additional board meeting because there's been some concerns from teachers and parents that came in regards to the opening of schools too, which leads to the next question, which is about schools, school openings. Now I know over in the state of Kansas, Governor Kelly said that she wants schools to open September 8th or after that. However, in the state of Missouri, Governor Parsons is kind of like I'm gonna let the districts do what they want to do, and right now we see it's different. Some districts are opening, some are not. I mean, it's like it's not consistent. So if you were in that governor's seat in regards to school openings, how would you address that?
Our schools need very clear criteria and guidance on where communities need to be in the spread of the virus, on transmission, on positivity rates, and on containment. In every part of Missouri, cases are rising, and we are trending in the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm.
What we are doing now, what we have done in the month of July to contain the virus, will dictate what community spread looks like in August when schools are opening. And the fact that cases are rising everywhere shows that we have not taken the steps necessary to get this virus under control. As a mom of school-age kids myself, I am eager for my kids to return to school, right? Kids thrive in that environment. They
Mm-hmm.
need instruction with their teachers and peer-to-peer interactions, right? And I know you understand that
Yes,
because you
ma'am.
work in the school district.
Yes.
I think the issue is, Governor Parson has a very cavalier and almost cruel attitude toward school opening. He's taken President Trump's approach that schools will be open no matter what the underlying conditions of the coronavirus are in our state. And he has said, if when schools open, your kids are going to go to school, they're going to get COVID, they're going to get sick, and they're just going to go home and get over it.
Hmm.
That is not a plan. That is not acceptable. It's stunning to hear him say that. And many kids won't be fine, but his comments also ignore the
Mm-hmm.
risk to teachers and support staff, bus drivers, parents, grandparents, caregivers, right? And so we need statewide guidance on where communities need to be, as I said, on containment of the virus, on transmission, and positivity rates, so we can get this under control.
Yeah, I mean, because I was talking to another colleague of mine, and they were asking. They said, "Well, what's the best description of how this whole school thing looks?" I said, "Man, have you seen Avengers: Infinity War when Thanos snapped?" I said, "That's how it looks. It's like everything just went completely like blank. I mean, we don't know what's going on. There's no clear expectations. I mean, it's causing a lot of division with there not being any clear expectations. I mean, I'm seeing colleagues talking about not wanting to come to work, not getting out of their contracts, parents not wanting their kids to go to schools because there's no consistent guidelines on how kids should be educated. So yeah, consistency is definitely key. Definitely. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh yes, speaking of schools, just recently, and I know you talked about budget and everything too. I would say about an excess of over $100 million was cut from education from Governor Parsons. Uh, as far as the budgets being cut and education yet again being cut the hardest, if you were governor, would a big chunk of the education's budget have been taken out like that? Are you hello?
Hello?
Yeah, are you still there?
Sorry, you cut out there for a second. Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, you cut out there for a second.
Okay, sorry about that. The question I had was, just recently, Governor Parsons had cut education's budget by over 100,000. I'm sorry, $100 million. And we constantly see education being cut left and right in the state of Missouri. If you were governor during that time period, would education have saw a huge cut like that in the budget?
It is so short-sighted to cut funding for K through 12 education and higher education. We are at a period where our schools need resources. They need additional resources to prepare for the learning environment under COVID. Our districts need help with PPE, with sanitation, with public health advice, and we've had months to prepare for this. Person doesn't seem to understand that Jefferson City needs to be engaged on the issue of education in our schools every step of the way. As governor, I would do everything possible to protect funding for K through 12 education and higher education. Um, and look, education has been on the chopping block in the state budget
Mm-hmm.
for years. This is not really new. Again, we're just seeing cracks in our system because of the economic impacts of COVID. But giveaways to special interests of state revenue have meant that there has been cuts to funding for K-12 education. Teachers are not paid a salary that values the work that they do,
Mm.
and we have to change all that. Look, I think the bottom line here is that budgets are about priorities, and we have seen in Jefferson City that priorities are all wrong on
Yes.
education, on healthcare, on so many other things. And as governor, I would make education a priority.
Mm. Thank you. Appreciate that. I mean, from a teacher hearing that's very fulfilling to hear because for a while, educators have not felt like they've been taken into consideration. They have not been seen as essential. And hearing someone on the state level who has a strong possibility of being the next governor saying that is very refreshing. Well, we came to the end of our interview, and I want you to please let people know how they can get in contact with your campaign or get more information about what you stand for and what you do. I know where to find you, but I would like you to tell our listeners how. Hey, I want to know more about Miss Nicole Galloway. How can I find out more information about her?
Yes, absolutely. Well, again, thank you, Tyrone, for inviting me to join you today.
Mm.
If folks are interested in finding out more about me, about the campaign, they can go to NicoleGalloway.com. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And, the last thing I just want to say in closing this out is, as state auditor, I have never settled for things just being the way they are.
Mm.
And you shouldn't have to settle either, right? You should expect better and you should expect more. As governor, I am going to fight really hard to ensure that we don't go back just to the status quo and that you and your families have an opportunity for a better future.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. As a matter of fact, I think we met briefly years ago when you was first running in Raytown, Missouri. There was a
Oh.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, because I said, yeah, I remember meeting her. 'Cause I met you briefly when I was talking with you and some other candidates too. So yes, I definitely had that conversation with you professionally on on the air, and also I spoke to you briefly off the air, and genuine all around, and I really appreciate you for that.
You have a good memory.
Well, it's a good teacher memory.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next week is the election for the primary, August 4th. Um, if possible, could we get in touch with your campaign and see how things are going and all that?
Yes, I would love to come back on anytime. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. All right. God bless and have a good rest of the campaign.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Take care.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. All right, and that was our interview with Ms. Nicole Galloway. She is a state auditor of Missouri who is running for governor of Missouri. So please stay tuned. We have another interview coming in shortly with a local position that's on the state level as well too. So stay tuned. All right, this is Tyrone Gathers Jr., your host of The Source of the Inkwell, live on KUAW, Knowledge, Understanding, and Wisdom, Kansas City's global community radio station. You can email this station at kuaw985@gmail.com. Call us at 816-599-6893. You can listen to us a number of ways. You can hit us up on KUAW.org. You can also go to Twitter, Periscope. You can go to YouTube, type in KUAW Radio. You can go to Facebook, KUAW LPFM 98.5 on the live channel. You can also go to your TuneIn app on your mobile device and say KUAW, type in KUAW Radio, it'll pop right up. If you got Echo or Amazon, ask them to play KUAW Radio and they will. So, previously on this broadcast, we had Mrs. Nicole Galloway, who was the Missouri State Auditor that's actually running for governor of Missouri. And right now we have another position on. We have Miss Sherry Purpose Hall. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Now, Sherry, what position are you running for?
I'm running for Democratic Committee Woman, and that's for Jackson County, and that is for 7th Ward.
7th Ward. Now, two questions. First question is, what are the boundaries of the 7th Ward? And the second question is two-part, is what exactly does a committee woman do?
So the boundaries are a little bit jagged. The boundaries go from, and actually let me look this up so I can get it right. Like I said, it's a little bit jagged. Give me just a second. I actually do have the map on my phone. Technology is beautiful, right?
Yes, it is.
and I've actually posted the map also on my page. So the seventh ward goes all the way from Truth, and this is the jagged part, right? Where it goes up to 55th, it goes clear back to about Indiana, where we track back, let's say, to 51st. It goes back almost to Mercington. And when it goes back, I'm looking at this map. It's a little bit jagged, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yeah.
On 45th, it goes on back to Jackson. And I meet the southern boundary of 41st Street.
Southern boundary.
So that's pretty clear.
Yeah.
So the southern side of 41st, the northern side of 55th, Truth, and then all the way back to the east, some parts, Mercington, Jackson, it's a little jagged on my eastern line.
Okay. Yeah. And as you were saying what your boundaries were, Mr. Walker was drawing me a map with his finger. So, we were able to.
It's a little jagged on my eastern line.
Yeah. But we got a clear picture though of where you're working with. Now, in the studio we were discussing about what exactly a committee woman does. So could you please enlighten us on what this position does politically?
Absolutely. Well, a committee woman does basically what I already do. We inform the community. We work with the community. We also work with grassroots advocacy organizations as well as activists, people trying to start things, people trying to do better within the community. We also have committee meetings, and we also support people who are currently in government.
Okay.
This position is also a non-paid position, so really you have to have a heart for the community or already be doing these activities in the community. You probably should. But really this position is all about information and informing people and just being there, being a resource, helping people be able to do the things that they need to do.
Okay. And you mentioned that, the community involvement piece. Now, I know you, and I know what you do in this community. Now, I know a lot of our listeners probably have the question in regards to what led you to pursue this elected position.
Absolutely. Well, number one, I've always been involved since I was a child, a kid. When I was 15, I actually started going to school board meetings because my school was getting closed. So I'm dating myself right there. That's when it's high school was going through. It's transitioned and now it's back open again. We flip-flop there over the years. I also started serving in my neighborhood association, committees, and block clubs and different things of that nature. So I've always been involved and learned about politics and been a part of my community. At this point, what I do in the community, I am the interim CEO of a company called Poetry for Personal Power. We do art, entrepreneurship, mental health advocacy, and what that really means for our community, if you just really look at the way things are looking, crime, everyone wants to talk about the crime issue, but no one wants to talk about the people. No one wants to talk about the heart of the matter. No one wants to talk about the spirit. And that is where I and people like me come in. We actually talk about the mental health and in a non-clinical manner because I believe in community health, where you build up the pillars of the community around people, and they become stronger because of it.
Mm,
And that's the kind of work that I do through art, through mental health, through advocacy on multiple levels.
mm. And
I also have another organization, the Sigma Art House, and that is burgeoning. It's just starting. And it is looking to deal with economic development in art.
hmm, okay, yeah, you got a nice resume in regards to the position that you're trying to transition to. And there is one thing, like I said, I've been knowing you for a little while, and I will say that when it comes to activism in this community, you definitely wear that hat well when it comes to that. Um,
Thank you.
and the fact that you said that committee people, committee women, committee men, a committee person would work with activism and activists,
Right.
as well as to transition what these individuals want on the grassroots level to the politicians. So
Absolutely.
that's a very, very important role. And then for you to say that the position is, you said it's a volunteer position, right? Well, when you get elected, you don't get paid for it, right?
Correct. This
Right.
is not a paid position.
And it's
So you got to really do that hard. You got to be that this life.
you gotta have a heart for it. Yeah, of course. Yes, yes.
And the other thing is, whether I'm elected or not, I'm still going to do this work because this is what I do. So
Hmm.
um, it's what I do. It's where I live. Um, it's the legacy. I have children here, but I tell people not to say, "Oh, I do it for the kids." No, you're doing it for you.
Hmm.
You're doing it for you, and your children are reaping the benefits of it, and that's how you leave an inheritance.
Yeah, you making a legacy.
Right.
Hmm. Now, you kind of touched on some of the things that I was talking with Mrs. Galloway on earlier. Um, we're talking about how, things are handled behaviorally in our community, but not cognitively. Like if there's a
Right.
situation, they just, okay, put handcuffs on them, throw them in jail. Not, okay, why is this person doing it? There's no education behind it. There's no deeper digging into the problem. So
Right.
if if you if you are elected in this position, how
Mhm.
what is your policy in regards to talking with other elected officials in regards to being more cognitive in our community?
So I would do some of that, but really, being involved in many committees that are already established, that's number one. Number two, communicating and writing programs. I genuinely believe, number one, we don't need a new committee or a new program. There's a lot of them that already do it, but it's going to work.
Mm,
And being involved in those things and getting people who want to be involved in those things connected, because my pet peeve from people I hear, whether it be in person or on social media, is, well, ain't nobody doing this. And the thing is, you have people who work in silos, tirelessly, thanklessly, trying to do the very thing that people say ain't nobody doing. So the issue that's missing is connection. It's not necessarily the want, the desire, or even the innovation most times. It is connection to the people who want to work to lift up that cause, and it's also connection to the funds of that cause.
mm,
So in my background, I also write grants and try to connect the funding and also try to build those relationships around that solidify these things. And that is elected, that is what I'm looking to do.
okay, that
And
definitely.
building those supports.
And when I listen to what a committee person does, I hear a lot of people say, "Well, there's no people like me in office," or "I can't relate to anybody." Well, from what I'm hearing from you, it seems like that your position that you're being elected to is probably one of the most relatable positions that a voter could probably touch to. Would that be safe to say?
It's safe to say, it's very relatable. And the thing is, there are lots of people like me. I'm not going to say that there's nobody like me.
Mm,
The woman who previously held this position I would say my incumbent, may she rest in peace. I, you talked about my resume, but her resume is leaps and bounds above mine. Of course, she got 50 years on me in this, right?
Right.
She's a civil rights. She's like, Miss Rose James touched so many lives, you know. And I think the correction has to be made that when people, especially when they run for these positions, they're not necessarily running all the time because, oh, this other person can't do it like me. I'm running because, number one, like I said, I was asked to, and number two, because I believe I can add something to the position. I can add some wind, I can add some spirit to the position, and the thing of the matter is, she did so much in her time. She is so legendary that, number one, it is correct. There is no one like her. But number two, you don't want anyone else to be like her either.
Right.
You want somebody to be able to answer to the issues of right now. You want somebody to be able to answer to the issues of these people at these times. And while I believe that she is able to, and she would have been able to, and I also believe that we would have been working together whether I was elected or not, and then she would have kept the position. What? I just truthfully believe that this is a position where people gather up and they work together because we are so much alike. I don't believe that this is one of those cat fight, dog it out, I'm so much better than my opponent, yada, yada, yada. No, this position, I literally live up the street from you.
Yes.
You're my neighbor. Let's work together to get this work done.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? On the ballot with me also is Teresa Perry. And we are kind of under the same covering. And she was like, oh, I didn't realize that we were both 7th Ward. So we already even have an agreement amongst ourselves, like, hey, Teresa's like, I'm pushing for you, and throughout this, I'm going to help you. I'll post things. And I'm like, yeah, if I win, I'll give you the passwords to my account. She's like, yeah, because I'm tired. So, I'll run on the ground. You post them to my account. We'll work together and then to make sure that people get the information that they need. Those are the kind of collaborations that we do because we are neighbors.
Yes.
And I believe that's what all politicians should do. Unfortunately, that's not how it works all the time. And I understand, there are ideological differences and things of this nature, but for this position, for people who work in the community and have their hands on so many, I just don't believe it has to be like that. And it's not. Not for this.
Right. Well, yeah, and like when you said that you and Miss Perry kind of got an arrangement, an agreement, hey, we're going to support each other. I think that right there is very beneficial to the constituents, saying, hey, look, if the person that I wanted didn't get it, but this person did, and they're working together, hey, it's a win-win for me. So it's all about those people. Yeah.
And I unfortunately, and that's kind of where I am with it, because while I rubbed and brushed elbows with Ms. James a couple of times, I didn't get a chance to build that kind of intimate relationship with her, and I didn't get a chance to forge that kind of agreement with her.
Yes.
Kind of like, hey, you live right down, because literally I looked at her address, like she only lives like a couple of blocks from me. And it's like, hey, you live down here, I live down here, I can learn a thing or three from you. How can I help you? And that would be my position. because you know me as a historian. So I would also want to learn and just hear the history from the lips of the senior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know.
Right.
But unfortunately, I didn't get that opportunity. So as we're moving forward, and that's another sad thing, kind of, I'm hoping that somebody was there to kind of document and take record of the jewels and the information that she had, especially with regards to the history of our area.
Okay.
Because I believe that's especially important. You know how I feel about history and the record, and not only the written record, but the oral retelling of the record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would have to say that, like, this is like a real interview, you know, in regards to this whole political piece. I mean, it's like people, if you all are listening, yes, Ms. Hall is running for office. However, this is a future politician is talking to you at, you know, person to person. And that's what it's all about, you know, that grassroots piece. You know, it's like you're talking with us in regards to what you're going to do for us. And this is a very beneficial conversation that we're having right now, and I thank you for this. And
not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would do it at any time,
yeah,
especially with you, because you're honest.
Yeah. Yeah, and
you've always done stuff for me anyway, so you can back.
It's all good. It's all good, man. You good people, man. Light attracts light. Now, you're gonna be on the ballot next Tuesday, right? August 4th.
Yes.
Okay, so you will be on the ballot. Now, do you have a website or any kind of like a contact info if someone wants to get more information about your platform or whatnot, or learn more about you? How can people do that?
I do. So my website is spokenpurpose.com.
Okay.
And I am actually in the process of putting some videos up on that page and a link to a landing page that is solely for 7th Ward Committee woman. I guess I was slow to, and I can attribute this to myself, I was slow to the realization, like, hey, you need a separate website for this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I put my information on my regular artist website and had been posting stuff on Facebook because I have lots of contacts and lots of people on Facebook, and that's where I normally post things. But I feel like a separate dedicated website would be useful for this information, just because it needs to be curated in such a way that it is easily accessible and navigatable for the information of our people in this area. And they don't have to kind of navigate my business in conjunction with the community business.
Yes, ma'am.
So that website is soon to come for 7th Ward, but my information is on my website right now, spokenpurpose.com.
Spokenpurpose.com. Well, we thank you for taking the time to talk to us, and God bless on your political pursuits. And next Tuesday, we will be touching base with you to see how everything is going, if that's cool.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, and we will be talking to you soon. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mrs. Sherry Purpose Hall, who is running for committee woman for the 7th District of Kansas City, Missouri. So if she will be on the ballot next Tuesday. All right. Thank you, Ms. Hall. Thank you. Have a good afternoon and evening.
You too.
Yes, ma'am. Throughout the course of 3 to 4 weeks, we've been really hitting hard on the election piece in our community. Voting is a right. It is a privilege. Voting is made possible from the sacrifices of those that came before us. It is very important that we get out there and exercise that right to vote, to put people in office that have our best interest at heart. We try to do our best to get both sides of the political coin, whether they're Democrat or Republican or independent or whatnot. We made sure that we reached out to as many people as possible to come in to KUAW to share their views and their platforms with you, and also answer some questions that you all may have. Now, there's one thing I do want to throw out there. Although this broadcast and this station is bipartisan, we do not endorse any candidates. We do endorse your right to choose. Now, when you make your choice, keep in mind that there's one thing, there are a few things we were talking about throughout the course of this whole political series, is that you want a candidate that is one that is relatable, okay? One that will fight for you, one that is aware of who you are, one that connects with you. And also the big piece that we talked about today is more cognitive with situations and not behavioral. Now, right now, we are in an election year. And when you are in an election year, you see a lot of things pop up that's dangled in your face, okay? One thing I will say is that we put candidates on this on this platform of KUAW for you all to see them as genuine as possible. One thing I can say is that each candidate that came here on this show was as real as they can get, and they were they kept it 100. As far as you can actually fact check the information too. Now, one thing I won't do and one thing KUAW will not do is put someone in front of you that's not good for you. You have a nice assortment of individuals that we showed you and that we've even alluded to that you can go and vote for. Keep in mind, you have that right. It is yours. Get up and go vote. August 4th, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Go and vote, Kansas City. Go and vote, Jackson County. Because right now, there are people in office that should not be there. And our guests that came on who were running, they are all about change. So, you know, find a candidate that's like that. Whether it be someone on this show or someone that's someone that was not on the show, someone that's on the ballot. Do your own research. Figure out who you want to represent you. Because when it all comes down to it, you want someone that's in office that has your best interests at heart. Because right now, we have examples right now on the state level and local level of individuals that come in and give you a promise or come in and fool with you when it's time for votes, but disappear afterwards. You have the right to vote and hold who you voted for accountable. This is our time. Yeah, year 2020 has been rough. But the good thing about going through a storm is there's always a ray of sunshine. And August 4th can be that ray of sunshine for a lot of us. November can be a huge ray of sunshine for a lot of us. So get out there and make the sun shine. This is Tyrone Gathers Jr. This is the Source of the Inkwell. In the inkwell, education overflows. And like ink, it stains. Let it stain permanent. God bless, and we will see you next week, August 4th. We will be doing our traditional campaign trail series. I will be out going back and forth, touching bases with all of the candidates we interview with to give you all updates of what's going on, and also to make sure that the voting suppression does not take place. So be on the lookout for that during the whole day next Tuesday, August 4th, as well as a special broadcast in regards to the candidates on my hour at 7 o'clock p.m. next week. So God bless. See you next week.